What's up, fellas? In the second video of the day, we're going to be talking about some NBA buyout stuff. There's been some conversation around some of the guys that, have signed to new teams, have been bought out. Is the system wrong? Are these guys actually going to matter? We're going to cover all that stuff in the second video of the day. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload NBA stuff on this channel twice a day, every single day. If you're new here, by the way, what's up? My name is Tucker. This is a great place for the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well, and you can check me out at various socials and a Linktree link down in the description below. With all those things said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the buyout guys for this season. So first, I'm going to make some general points, then we'll kind of get into the buyout guys specifically. Do they matter? How much will they help? So I think that it's pretty clear that the buyout system in the NBA skews heavily towards bigger market teams, or in certain exceptions, teams that are really, really good, right? So it's either a team that's in, the New York, Brooklyn area, a team that's in the LA area, or teams that are at the top of each conference, guys want to potentially, fill a role in a potential championship team. Clearly, the buyout system is geared towards helping those teams. And if you're a smaller market team, even if you're good, it's a pretty big disadvantage. Sometimes. Now, the counter to that would be, traditionally in the postseason, buyout guys really don't matter. I don't have the stat in front of me. I couldn't find it. But there was something that was tweeted out last year, the Bobby Marks tweeted, where it was basically like, there's been 2 instances in the last 10 years in which a buyout guy has played more than 100 playoff minutes. And it was like Brian Cardinal for the Mavs in 2011, like on a championship team. Like it's not very likely these guys have a huge impact on who ends up winning the title. But there are some bigger names this year that have been bought out, which has brought up this conversation of, is the system broken? I do think that it's an advantage for bigger market teams, as there are multiple advantages. I'm not sure how you fix it, because teams are going to continue to buy out players as long as the rules exist this way. I guess you could make it more expensive. You could say you can only get one of them, so you kind of have to save the spot. I think there are adjustments to be made, and if you want to make those adjustments, that's fine. I don't think it's a super egregious issue, if I'm completely honest, just because, again, traditionally it hasn't had a huge impact in the postseason. But if you want to make the case that like the Nets getting Blake Griffin and Demarcus Aldridge is unfair, I would listen to you. I don't think that it's so egregious that it's something that we need to have a huge conversation about. But having said that, we can talk about the guys that have been bought out and signed to new teams this year. I've got 5 guys on the list, actually, which is probably more than you thought there would be on the list. Actually 6, so 5 different teams, 6 players. Demarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin. We'll go over this quickly because I feel like we've talked about the Nets and these 2 guys specifically a lot lately. Aldridge, I was surprised when he signed there. It's clearly going to be a pretty heavily offensive role for him. He's not going to do a ton defensively, but the spacing that it provides can certainly be helpful. And this big man rotation is probably just going to be a game-to-game thing. If there's a game where DJ is not playing particularly well, maybe he doesn't play a ton. Same thing with Claxton, maybe same thing with Aldridge, and same thing with Blake. As for Blake in Brooklyn, again, we've done a whole video on this. I won't take too long on this. But there's a potential here for both him and Aldridge to be a player that can, facilitate a bit in the post and take advantage of mismatches, because teams are almost going to have to switch against this Brooklyn team. And if Blake can punish mismatches in the post and use his passing ability, that can certainly be helpful in addition to being a good role guy. So I think if any buyout matters for this season and for the postseason, it's going to be one of these 2 or the next one we're going to talk about, which is Andre Drummond. And that kind of goes to does the buyout guys, actually matter part of this. Drummond in LA. I think that you could make an argument that there were better situations for Drummond to go to for himself. If you go to somewhere like New York, showcase your value, potentially get a bigger contract. But for LA specifically, they've shown a great ability over the last year and a half to use size well. They have not been one of the better shooting teams in the regular season over the last year and a half, but it has not mattered. They have found a way to be one of the best defensive teams in the league, and one of the biggest, most punishing teams in the league as well. And Drummond fits right in, alongside that. I don't know if I love the idea of a starting group of Andre Drummond and Anthony Davis, assuming Davis gets healthy. And I think ultimately the destiny of this team and the group that is going to be most successful as we get to, the playoffs, potentially the finals, is going to be the AD at the 5, LeBron at the 4 group. I don't think that there's, a situation where we're going to be seeing, once it really matters, a lot of Drummond and Anthony Davis together in the front court at the end of games, but, certainly provides them depth. It's not like they had a ton of other options there outside of Anthony Davis. Marc Gasol's whatever. So I do think Drummond's going to help them. And if there was a team that was going to be able to really use his skill set well in a way that's going to potentially provide them playoff success, it is going to be LA, because they've shown an ability to do really well with bigger players over the last year and a half or so. One that kind of went under the radar a little bit that I actually sneaky really like is Austin Rivers going to the Milwaukee Bucks. Austin Rivers is a polarizing player. I've never been a huge Austin Rivers guy in the past, but he's had moments, especially at times in Houston, and provides something that I think Milwaukee needs in a really weird way. Someone that can create some on their own, can shoot. I'm not saying that Austin Rivers is going to be running the offense down the stretch of big playoff games, but as a bench guy, they didn't have a ton of creativity. And so to just have another guy out there, like if Holiday's not playing a night, or if him and Middleton are off the floor and you don't want Giannis to have to do quite literally everything, like Austin Rivers can do some stuff as a nice little combo guard that can shoot. I don't think that's something you can just gloss over there in Milwaukee, especially given that they traded away DJ Augustin in the PJ Tucker trade, and then you replace him with Rivers. It works really well. That's probably a bigger indicator of a way in which the buyout market isn't flawed, because Milwaukee is certainly not a big market team, but they did end up with Austin Rivers simply because they're a really good team, and there's a role for him there, and there's an opportunity for them to potentially win a title this year. So I think Rivers can certainly matter in Milwaukee. Ultimately, again, probably not going to be on the floor down the stretch. That's the case with most buyout guys, but certainly something that can help them off the bench. Another guy that I was honestly surprised there wasn't more buzz about in terms of interest in acquiring him as a buyout player, and that's Gorgy Jang. He ends up in San Antonio. If you gave me a choice, I would have rather had him in Brooklyn than I would have had LaMarcus Aldridge. Just a guy that's a bit more versatile, better defensively, can still shoot in space, and it's just a really interesting player. I don't blame Memphis for buying him out because he's on a huge contract and they've got other guys that they want to play. But Gorgy Jang is kind of exactly what San Antonio likes to do with their big guys that are versatile, guys that can move, guys that can shoot a little bit, can defend, can finish around the rim. Gorgy Jang's a solid player. And again, if you want to make the argument that you would have rather had him over LaMarcus Aldridge in Brooklyn, I'd listen and I'd probably agree with you. Not that he's a crazy good player, but I think in what could potentially be a tough second half of the year for San Antonio, Gorgy Jang could certainly be helpful for them, considering they don't have a ton of front court depth, and I like that addition. And then Demarcus Cousins in LA, people are going to want to be excited about this one. I think Boogie's washed. I don't want him to be. Like, I don't want the Demarcus Cousins in the NBA thing to be over, but I think it is. He's just had too many lower body injuries for a guy as big as he is to, be able to move and be able to be a good enough athlete on the floor to be a significant difference maker. Offensively, he can still do some things. He's improved as a shooter and a pretty good passer. But, I mean, it's really, really rough to watch him defensively, watch him even just try and move around on the floor. And that's a big issue for me. So, they certainly need depth in the front court in LA. And if Demarcus Cousins is your best option, I guess you go out and get him. But in terms of, is this guy going to actually matter? I doubt it. And I think it's pretty clear by the fact that he is potentially signing a 10-day contract with the Clippers rather than just like an actual deal. So ultimately, you guys can let me know down in the comment section below if you think any of the NBA buyout guys are going to matter this postseason. I mean, obviously the three of Aldridge, Griffin, and Drummond are the three biggest names and the three most likely buyout candidates to actually make a significant impact in the postseason. If I had to rank them, I'd probably go Griffin, Drummond, Aldridge, and then everybody else after that. The Griffin thing is intriguing. I mean, he's had good moments. He's had moments where he looks pretty good athletically. I think the passing ability is something that's really going to translate, and who knows? Who knows what this team is going to look like once Kevin Durant comes back and is fully healthy, and Harden gets some of the nagging injury stuff out of the way as well. It's easy to evaluate this team on one hand, and that they're going to be really good offensively, but it's difficult to evaluate them on the other, where it's like, what is it going to look like when KD comes back? Like I said, Austin Rivers' creativity in the backcourt, I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit a couple of big shots in the postseason. Jang, I think, is really going to help the Spurs, and then Cousins, I think, is washed. I think that's a pretty polarizing thing, but I don't think it should be. I think people really want the Cousins thing to keep going, but I don't think that's realistic. I think he's done. I think he's washed, and it sucks because Boogie was fun, and I was never a huge Demarcus Cousins guy, but once they started to get it going in New Orleans there right before he got hurt, it was a really, really cool thing to see, and I think him and Anthony Davis could have been a cool fit, but ultimately I think the Cousins thing is probably done in the NBA. But yeah, that is going to be the end of the second video of the day, and I thank you guys very much for watching. If you missed the first video, Go and check that one out. It's about some comments the Rockets GM recently made about the James Harden trade, and they are pretty ridiculous. It's a pretty crazy video. Go ahead and check that one out if you missed it. Check out the boxes on screen for more videos from me, as well as on the channel as a whole. You can leave a like rating on the videos, and you can check me out at various socials and a link tree link down in the description below. With those things said, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.